The moment these two things happened, I mean, I'm kidding you, we went from trying to find the next merchant who would use us to thousands of merchants.
Wow.
We were like short on warehouse supplies, and it became a supply constraint. I mean, I think this in the first year we barely made any money, and I think by year 3 we were over 100 million plus.
Wow.
I think we went in 2 years from almost 0 to 100 million. In certain businesses, it's not product market fit, it's product price market fit. Your product could be fitting, but the way you price it may not create the fit. And so you have to deeply think about, am I pricing it to really enhance my product market fit?
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I called it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is Product Market Fit.
Do you think the product market fit show has product market fit? Because if you do, then there's something you just have to do. You have to take out your phone. You have to leave the show 5 stars. It lets us reach more founders and it lets us get better guests. Thank you. Harish, welcome to the show, man.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Dude, so you're a multi-time founder and one massive success, a company called Deliver, which raised like $490 million, was acquired for over $2 billion by Shopify. And now you started something that was kind of more in the fulfillment space. We'll get to that. Then you started something that's more AI for logistics, as I understand it, literally like 12 months ago today, right? So last October, and already raised over $100 million, which is just an incredible feat by by any standards. So excited to chat with you today. Let's go back to the beginning, right? Like maybe give us just a little bit of background before starting Deliver. Like who were you? What were you doing at the time? And maybe just the origin story around that.
I started off my career at Amazon back when Amazon just sold books. Biggest bookstore was our tagline.
What year?
99.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What a time to be at Amazon. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was great. It was like maybe, a few hundred people in the sort of engineering side. So it was very small teams at that time. We just got the chance to go build a lot of software, which now runs Amazon Fulfillment, which is, presumably right now the biggest fulfillment company, at least in North America.
How long were you at Amazon for?
I was there for about 5 years.
Okay. And is it true that during that time, like Amazon is such a behemoth today, it seems like inevitable, but as I understand it, like especially after the dot-com bust, like it wasn't clear that Amazon would even survive. Is that true? Like what was it like inside?
I think the outside word was all about, I remember Time publishing an article saying Amazon.bomb, which was like, hey, it's all going to blow up and it's a bubble. But inside, I have to give credit to the leadership there, Jeff Bezos, Jeff Wilke, they continue to see the massive opportunity that internet will afford for online commerce and almost double down on innovation when everyone else was pulling back. Like in 2000 when, the stock market had crashed and the internet stocks and the darlings had all, for one time, like really retracted back. Jeff Bezos and Jeff Wilke, like they just said, hey, we're going to double down because we believe in this long term. This is a better way to shop. This is more convenient. You can have more selection and you can have better prices long term.
And they found a way to kind of stay profitable through it, right? To not fully depend on markets. Is that correct?
Like I wouldn't say like profitable from the very beginning, but I think the leadership there really had a very good plan to either raise capital or raise debt. But it was in a very disciplined way. It wasn't like, hey, let's do this and maybe we'll figure out if it's going to work or not. It was very like, hey, if we get to this scale, our cost of goods will go down to this level and then we will be clearly profitable. So let's get to that as fast as possible. So our cost of goods, the way we were buying our books or at that time, even CDs or DVDs. And so that I think is, actually a big learning I took away from that you can have responsible, fast growth. Like if you have very disciplined way of looking at your numbers and how the numbers are going to trend up as you scale and use those economies of scale to continue to drive your unit economics over time, actually helps you build a more defensible business, right? Like at today's scale, I would argue Amazon is an extremely defensible business. For someone else to go build that scale in the online world is extremely difficult.
I think it's true. Obviously, there is a trade-off between growth and profitability, but sometimes it's kind of like overstated. And I think it's a luxury, but some companies are in a position where you can have both. You can have sound unit economics and either profitability or close to it and still have pretty exceptional growth, certainly from a compounding perspective. because, if you hold up 50 to 100% a few years straight, you get pretty big.
That's right. Yeah. And especially true in, when there are technology transformations that are happening. At that time, the internet transformation was happening. And during those times, I think lots of new companies emerged, like what we're seeing today in AI, like hundreds and hundreds of startups emerge, lots of capital flows in. But as the dust settles, I would think the best run companies stay. I would argue companies who focus the most on the customer stay, right? But you have to continue to grow through this in the transition period, because you could be focused on customer, but if you're not in the top 2 or 3, then I think you get left out of the race.
So what happens after Amazon?
So I built a few businesses since, I went into the entrepreneurial side. I thought I had learned a little bit about how, things work, and was very inspired confidence in delivering good software. So I built a business which then merged with called Lulu.com, it's one of the largest marketplaces for independent authors. I built a business called Symphony Commerce, which was this sort of middle infrastructure layer called order management layer for mid-size and large brands. And then last one that I built, which was called Deliver, which was very much like Amazon Prime for small merchants.
And that was your biggest one, right?
That's my biggest business. And Amazon is like, America is a very large country and we have a very low density, per square mile. And the only way to affordably deliver e-commerce goods fast, predictably, and reliably is by having inventory in close proximity to demand, right? So if somebody's in Chicago and they order, Tide detergent, if the Tide is in Chicago, then I could use a local delivery provider and get it to them in one day. And it actually turns out that's the cheapest way to get it to them versus having the Tide in California and having it flown all over or driven all over the country. And that gets very expensive.
Just from a timing perspective, you started Deliver when exactly?
2017.
Today, that's like widely known and understood. I mean, even in Ottawa, we have on the East End a massive Amazon warehouse, and on the West End, another massive Amazon warehouse. So I think everybody gets that. But, in 2017, was this kind of a bit more of a unique insight, at least in the e-commerce world, that you needed to set these things up to really do fulfillment at scale?
I don't think it was a unique insight. I think Amazon was doing this for a while. I think what was unique was, could we apply it to a small merchant?
I see.
And what was unique is that thanks to Shopify, the number of small merchants who were building businesses online were just expanding rapidly, right? The number of new brands that were emerging was expanding rapidly. And so the combination of that, this new emergence of brands online through these very highly democratized platforms like Shopify were coming up, but then they also needed to offer something fast, affordable, reliable to their customers. And how could you offer this service, which inherently distributes your inventory, 5, 6 ways, maybe 8 ways in the country, for a merchant who may not have that either level of inventory, certainly doesn't have that infrastructure themselves. So the only way is you have to pool thousands of merchants of inventory to then be able to forward deploy it and distribute it and offer every single one of them a service comparable to what Amazon offers, right? I think that's sort of the unique insight that I would say at that time. But the method had been pretty well mastered by Amazon by that time.
Is this the same thing as like third-party logistics, 3PL, or is this like your one version of that, or was that a space that just happened over the last 10 years?
No, we are a version of it. We were just very focused on delivery speed. So we just said, a lot of 3PLs is like, hey, I don't want to pick and pack or store my things, so I'm going to give it to a business. We were saying, hey, that's okay, but what is really needed is to be able to offer a 1-day and a 2-day reliable delivery to your customers. Because if you do that, then your sales go up.
Yes, right.
Like where do online brands spend most of their money? Marketing, right? Either for most brands, that's the number 1 line item, or the number 2 after cost of goods sold. And one way to improve your marketing spend is that when people land on your website through an ad and they see that you can get this item tomorrow, their conversion rate goes up, right? Versus saying, hey, this item will show up in 7 days. And they're like, I don't know if I want to buy it.
Would you say that's one of the things that you understood better than, let's say, most at that time? Today, it's taken for granted.
I think so. Because I saw that power in Amazon. And Amazon, every time we dialed the speed down, our sales went up. There was never a time when we dialed our speeds down to say like, oh, could we do 3 day versus 2.5 day versus 2 days versus 1.5 versus 1 day? Every single time the delivery promise shrunk, the sales went up, And it's just like, it's very common sense, right, Pablo? Like nobody says like, oh, it would be great if I get this item in 10 days. Like nobody says that. Like nobody likes like, oh, it's slow shipping, But everybody likes that, hey, what would be super cool is, I can get it today, I can get it tomorrow, and I can try it. And if I don't like it, I can return it.
I think the idea is obvious, but just the importance of it, and especially back then, I actually remember, funny enough, my last startup, we brought in a professional CEO at one point, and he loved Amazon. Actually, back then, this is like literally 2017. I remember one day he said to me like, what other merchants don't get and what Amazon gets so well is like the sale's not done till the thing is at my house. Like I'm buying something, I want it now. You know what I mean? Like they get that. And it's true, if you have to wait, the old school way of thinking would have said, well, whatever, like, you don't need the thing tomorrow. Like I'm not talking about, a meal that you're going to eat. Like it's fine. It comes in 7 days. But there's something about the UX that makes it so different when you get it tomorrow versus 7 days. Now it's fully understood. Being able to power that 8 years ago, there's some alpha there. Like there's some kind of unrecognized value, I think.
There is, like if you think about what is online commerce in some ways competing with, it's offline commerce. And what do you get in offline commerce? You get instant gratification. Like you walk into a store, it's inconvenient, you have to park, your selection is somewhat limited, you may not find your size or the color you were looking for. Online solves for all of that. Where offline is still slightly better is, hey, when you do find the size and the color you like, you pick it up and you love it. You're like, hey, I've got it, And so how do you counter that? You counter that by reducing your delivery speeds, right? You say like, hey, if I can get it to you today or first thing tomorrow, that's pretty close. And you can try it on comfort of your home and you don't have to go find parking in a parking lot or like sift through 30 minutes to find your size and color. You can pinpoint that. It's a better way of commerce if your delivery speeds are faster and faster, right? I think that was a unique insight. And the other insight was that the online brand space will continue to grow. Shopify itself now is, I believe, 12% of all US e-commerce, just all the merchants on Shopify. It might be more or less. I don't remember the last number that.
But it's like $150 billion company today. Back then it was what, like 2 billion? Like it was pretty small, I think, in 2017.
It was a smaller company. I don't remember the size of it, but it was a smaller company.
Yeah.
But you could see how these brands were coming up and they were building higher quality product. And they were just becoming like this thing that most people started to gravitate to buy from. And what they had going for them was just higher quality product, an amazing brand story. These didn't have great fast fulfillment options, So we're like, okay, Deliver can fill that need.
And so how do you start? Because it's not a traditional like SaaS business at all.
It's not, yeah. So, well, I think we said like, hey, what are the things that we're going to be good at? And what are the things we're just going to use partners, right? Because it's very complex to build an infrastructure like this and to execute it for a young company. And so we just said like, hey, we're going to be good at one thing, which is placement of inventory. We will predict what New York is likely to buy of an item, and we will orchestrate getting that item in New York. And then we'll be partnering with warehouses. So we won't run the warehouses. Other people will run the warehouses. We'll put our software there. We will tell them which items are coming in, what do they need to pick and pack, but we would use their space, their labor. And we would use third-party delivery companies, and we will orchestrate and create a network of last-mile delivery companies because we would have forward-deployed inventory anyways. So now we're not doing as many cross-country shipments. We're doing much more local New York to New York shipments or Chicago to Chicago shipments.
And your customers would be the merchants or the warehouses? Who would pay?
Our customers are the merchants. So the merchants will give their inventory to us. We would decide how we are allocating that inventory.
Got you.
The warehouses will be one of our vendors, where we would pay the warehouses to do the service. Very much like how Uber executes, right? Like the customer is the person who's getting the ride and the driver is one of the vendors of Uber who, they pay for the service level.
That's kind of the idea. How do you start? Do you like raise money right away? Do you build a product? Like how do you get your first few merchants on board?
I think we did a bit of both. So we raised some money with this idea that there is a need for an Amazon-like infrastructure for this very emerging word.
How much did you raise?
I think I started off with 7 million, my first raise.
And a lot of that I assume had to do with your background at the time, made it relatively easy for you to raise.
Probably, yeah. I mean, that helped a little bit. But I think the ideas were timely. In fact, we raised it from a fund called 8VC, which is founded by Joe Lonsdale. And they were coincidentally thinking about the same idea. They also incubate companies in-house. When I had pitched them, they're like, hey, we're thinking about something similar. Your thinking is a little bit more evolved than what we were thinking because you're from the space. So instead of us incubating it, we will basically just back you. So some of it was coincidental. We basically said we'll have 4 warehouses, one in the Northeast, one in Texas, one in the West Coast, one in the Midwest to begin with. And so we went and got 4 warehouses. We wrote a bit of a software that can now take a merchant's inventory, split it 4 ways.
And by the way, you're guessing, or as they say, estimating what gets sold where just based on their past sales and time of sales?
Yeah, we basically hooked up into their data, whether it's through Shopify, only to understand their where their demand is. We started to basically tell merchants, hey, if you use Deliver, you're going to get faster shipping. And with that, your conversion rates will go up. And so we tried that. I think for 6 months, I think we got like 10 merchants to use us. Like there's not much uptake into the idea at all.
Was it at least big merchants? Like they need to be of a certain size?
No, very small. I mean, their big merchants wouldn't trust a new company with their fulfillment. Think about from a merchant's point of view, one of their biggest assets is the inventory, right? Like if you're a merchant and you're selling $100 million worth of inventory, parting your inventory to a startup that you've never heard of, it's a pretty big deal. Like you need a lot of trust for them to be able to say, oh, I'm going to give you my $50 million worth of inventory and make sure you will take care of it,
But funny enough, I have to assume your software would probably add the most value to the big merchants just because of the amount of data.
It would, except that, how do you build trust when you don't have a fully functional product? You haven't taken out the kinks, you don't have a brand name. And so you have to start with smaller merchants where we can handhold them and we can say like, when things are not fully working, we will make sure your orders get out. We'll make sure your inventory is safe. We'll give you daily, nightly inventory reports. And that's better than maybe like your in-house half a person team that you are putting on this fulfillment system of yours. But man, the first 9 months or so, like we didn't really get much demand on it. It was very small merchants, So we basically interviewed lots of merchants, talked to a lot of them, both our customers and people who said no when we pitched them. Like, why is that? Why are you not interested? And I think the key insights that we got from that were, I think, twofolds. One was, the idea of a fast promise is good, but like, I need to tell my customers. And we were not able to offer like, hey, it's 2-day nationwide because they didn't have enough inventory. I cannot say on my website, it's 2-day nationwide. It's sometimes 2 days in New York or around New York, 2 days in California, or 1 day in San Francisco. If I can't tell my customers, then I'm kind of like paying for something that my customers don't know or care. So you got to solve for that.
You only get it at the absolute last part of that funnel when they put in their delivery, address, and then you say, oh, it's 2-day shipping. But by that point, they're already buying anyways.
Exactly. So that was one big problem that they all highlighted. I think the other big problem was they said like, hey, the only way we deliver this 1 day and 2 day is we would distribute inventory. So they would give us inventory in LA or the ports and we will take it up and we'll basically run some trucks that would get that inventory out to these things. Our pricing was, we will charge you for fulfillment, pick and pack and shipping. You will also have to pay for the distribution because we're taking your inventory from LA and putting it in New York. And for them, it was like, it's like too complicated. Like we don't know the benefit yet. And now I have to pay you for moving my inventory to New York or moving my inventory to Chicago a little bit. Should we not? Like, is it going to boost my sales or not? So very, very valid concerns, right? Like in our minds, we were like, hey, we're doing fast delivery. The only way we can do this is by deploying inventory close to demand and they should pay for it. It's a fair game. But their perspective was very valid. When you like really peel the onion and you get a few very open customers with you, it is night and day difference in your thinking. And so we made, I think, 2 big changes based on these learnings. I think first change we made was we made a Prime-like badge that you can deploy on every product. So we would then detect if the person is viewing it in New York, we would turn that into get this order in 2 hours, get it by tomorrow, right? Like what you see on Amazon today everywhere. Amazon detects where you're at, and based on that, they map it to where the item is at in the warehouse, and then they give you a real-time promise when you're looking at a product.
Right, you moved it higher up in the funnel so you actually can add to conversion.
Higher up in the funnel. Exactly. We added into the filters, we added into the search so that people could like filter and say, show me all items that I can get tomorrow. So a lot of that visibility started to happen. And because the promise is dynamic, which is in Amazon's case too, is very dynamic promise. Like if the item is not in Texas and you're in Texas, they might give you a 3-day promise. If the item is in Texas, they might give you a 1-day promise. So the promise was very dynamic, but you had to like show it to the user who's viewing the product really up in the funnel. The second is we changed our pricing to be flat. So we just said for an item, depending on their weight and size, you just pay us this. We're going to take the risk of distributing your items. Everything is inclusive.
Including the final delivery.
Everything is one price, right? We just pay one price. In the fulfillment industry, there's sort of two things are true. One is the pricing is usually done by pick, pack, and ship. So, the warehouse charges you. And then the carriers charge you on a zone basis. Like, hey, if your item is going to zone 1 being short distance, zone 5 being long distance, you pay this much by weight of the item or volume of the item. And we sort of went a little bit further. We said, we're going to combine the two. We're going to eliminate the zones itself.
You're there. Everything is zone 1. That's kind of by definition.
Yeah, distributing inventory. So if we are wrong at distributing inventory and our algorithms are messing up, that's on us, not on you. And if we have to do more zones for your items, that's on our systems, not on you. You now get predictability of pricing. So you can now model your P&L and saying, if I ever sold this item, this is my COGS, this is my fulfillment, this is my marketing, this is what I make. And it turns out that was a huge need in the market.
Yeah, that's huge.
Right? Because now every business can very quickly say, I sold this item for 10 or 15, I paid $5 fulfillment, $4 for I make this much money.
Do they pass that on to consumers where it's like $5 shipping, or most people kind of just include it?
They could choose to. It's up to them. We left it up to them. It's their decision. And even if we took the speed argument out, just the flat shipping argument or the flat price argument, like changed the whole game, right? Like even that was better than their status quo where they would ship it to one warehouse, but then they would be surprised every month on how many zones did I ship? Oh, this one shipped 7 zones. Oh my gosh, I lost money on that order because it shipped 7 zones. Or this one shipped 3 zones. Oh my gosh, this was great. It was just like they couldn't model their business very well. And so by taking on that risk, we were able to give them predictability of their financials, which was huge. And trust me, like we did these two things, and then we did a little partnership with Walmart where we said, hey, we have fixed pricing. Your merchants at that time did not have FBA-like equivalent where Amazon guys have FBA. You can use Deliver for Walmart merchants to sell on Walmart, but get 1 and 2 day. And Walmart obviously likes that because if their customers get to see a fast shipping promise, they buy more. And we did that. And suddenly most of merchant sales was like 2x, 3x because the delivery promise was there. Plus the pricing was flat. The moment these two things happened, I mean, I'm kidding you now, we went from trying to find the next merchant who would use us to thousands of merchants.
Wow.
Signing up to, we were like short on warehouse supplies, and it became a supply constraint.
And this is what year at this point?
I think it became like 2019.
2 years in.
We became supply constrained at that time.
What was revenue growth like once that inflection point happened?
I mean, I think that's in the first year we barely made any money. And I think by year 3, we were over 100 million plus.
Wow.
I think we went in 2 years from almost 0 to 100 million.
What are margins like in this business?
They're low, very slim, right? So on a unit economics basis, you're looking at 15%. In the beginning, they were even lower, but then as we started to gain scale, we started to gain some margins. I think at scale, maybe you can get up to 20, 22% in that range. Yeah, so it was a big lesson for us, right? Like there's like these little things that you presume, but it's not clear to the customer. And once you make that clear, but the reality is that to do flat pricing, we had to rethink the whole system, right? We're now deeply investing into how the items are distributed. We're deeply investing into making sure we have space available in all parts of the country. We then invested into building a system that could cross-dock inventory efficiently. So we would run trucks nightly across the whole country.
I mean, you shifted the risk. You took on the full risk at that point, because if you do it right, it's great. But if you make a mistake, you're eating all that cost.
So you had to re-architect, you had to rebuild your engineering teams, your infrastructures to focus on these type of problems. To the merchant, it looks very simple, right? Like, hey, I've got a 1 pound item. I always pay you $6 and never have to think about it. Plus, I get fast shipping. Hey, great, sign me up. And I think there was this separation between the product is what the customer sees, right? Underlying, there's just a lot of complexity of algorithms, pricing, capacity management, running intracity trucks all the way every night. And we had to keep taking that on and on to build predictability and maintain good margins for us. But yeah, it was a good lesson, in product markets, which is just this little less change. The other big lesson for me here, Pablo, which in certain businesses, it's not product market fit, it's product price market fit, right? Your product could be fitting, but the way you price it may not create the fit. And so you have to deeply think about, am I pricing it to really enhance my product market fit?
We have tens of thousands of people who have followed the show. Are you one of those people? You want to be a part of the group. You want to be a part of those tens of thousands of followers. So hit the follow button.
You could argue that pricing was so important to your product, it was almost part of the offering, like it's part of the product. The value you're delivering is the fact that it's a flat price for delivery, which is something they're just like not used to.
Yes. I ran pricing for the business till we got acquired. Like it was so important. Every single pricing change, I literally obsessed over because it changed everything. What we invest in internally. And then you, of course, have to build systems when you have thousands of merchants joining you. You can't serve them with people. You have to build extremely self-serve systems, right? Which is another big, at least for me, learnings is that as you start to get demand, be like, hey, we can't have a person on a phone call or an email now onboarding a merchant. But now you're onboarding a merchant who's giving you $10, $20 million worth of inventory without ever talking to anybody.
Wow.
Right? So how do you build very high trust onboarding systems that are self-serve? At one point, we had like 7,000, 8,000 merchants or something like that. How do you onboard merchants where they're never talking to anybody, just going on and like sending you inventory? And then you're telling them like, hey, you sent us 50,000 units, but we got 45,900. Here's the proof. So you had to build a lot of self-serve systems for it, but systems that inspire trust, because systems that have very high visibility and transparency inspire trust. Systems that don't have that, do the opposite. So our product roadmap started to change to do that, right? Like how do you inspire trust in your customers? And so any signal we got, anytime we received inventory, anytime there was defects, anytime there were damages, okay, we had to get pictures, we had to upload them, we had to share it with the customers or merchants. They had to be able to see it. They had to be able to dispute it with their manufacturers, that, hey, these whole box was defective. Because sometimes they would never see that inventory before they came to us. They would just tell their manufacturers to send the inventory to us, right? So I think once you get on something, your product direction and roadmap changes with that. You have to follow it in its entirety. You can't like give it up halfway. Like even if we had given up, in my view, the idea that this whole transparency, visibility thing, we're just going to run it through customer service, right? I think we would have failed at that point, right? Just the cost of that, and then like people not trusting us and saying, oh, now I have to talk to somebody, and I don't know if they understand it. Now you have to train your people, versus just building systems where everything is there for them. They can see everything. They can get alerts on everything. And vice versa. I think my other learning was that once you build self-serve systems, man, they create growth for you like you sometimes don't imagine, right? Like somebody at 3 a.m. getting frustrated with his fulfillment company and finds Deliver and in 2 clicks can onboard themselves and sends inventory. Great. Like we had merchants starting to sign up from Thailand and China and like places we would have never imagined to go. And they would have these things where they would translate our English into their local language, like a little widget or a Chrome extension. And they would run the whole thing, their whole business.
Crazy.
And we would have never spoken to them. So I think self-serve systems are beautiful things. And I mean, companies like, Stripe and Shopify and others have really shown the word on how powerful self-serve is if you get it right.
So I want to make sure we have enough time for your current company, Augment, but let's just fast forward and just maybe take a couple minutes to talk about, because everybody always wants to know how the story ends, right? Like, so how did the Shopify acquisition happen? Maybe just set some of the context of how those discussions started. Getting an acquisition actually done, especially at that scale, multi-billion-dollar scale, is not trivial, no matter how well your business is doing.
So I think, listen, like increasingly large number of our customer base was Shopify because Shopify was growing so fast and their merchants needed this service the most, right? We did have lots of merchants from marketplaces like Walmart and eBay, even some Amazon merchants who would use us as a backup to FBA. But I would say a dominant percentage of our merchants were Shopify. And so as we were scaling, I'm sure like, Shopify being such a data-driven company, they were seeing more and more merchants using us. Shopify is a very merchant-obsessed company. I actually never met a company as obsessed with their customers and merchants specifically as Shopify is. And so, from their perspective, what was interesting is like, what are the big bottlenecks for you in growing your business? Because if their merchants business grows, clearly Shopify business grows too. And Shopify as a platform has addressed payments and addressed, building a really seamless software. But fulfillment or physical world was one area where, merchants would routinely fall behind. So the idea was like, hey, with Shopify scale and might, could they elevate Deliver to a level that would really boost their merchants, businesses? And that would really help their merchants, but also help us. And, we had spoken on and off for a while, like either for investment rounds or partnerships before.
Is this with like Toby, Harley, or is this like corp dev team, usually these kind of discussions?
I think we started with corp dev first for some partnership stuff, and then their product teams as well on the partnership side. So that's how we were discussing. And then more towards the end, as we were, getting closer to this, I spent some time with Toby and lots of product leaders there. Shopify is also a very product-centric company, right? Product and engineering really is a big powerhouse, and how things are going to come together. Technology is very important. Toby himself is a very product-centric, engineering leader, phenomenal leader. Yeah, so as we started to discuss, I think it just made more sense to do sort of a partnership, be part of Shopify and like add the superpower to their merchants,
Presumably, did you stay there? You stayed there probably for a while before you started Augment?
That's right. I stayed for about a year and a half. And then I think as AI was coming along, if you look at my journey, like I'm a technologist, but then have stumbled upon this world of logistics, supply chain. I've learned this space. It's a very humbling space too, Pablo. Like the moment you think like it kicks you in the butt, like, oh my gosh, it's very complex. Physical world is, as engineers, we think writing code is like transactional in nature, right? So you can write something and close a transaction database and everything is all set. The physical world is like non-transactional, right? So you have things that you think are going to happen, but don't happen. Somebody could pick an item in a warehouse and scan it and just leave it. Or their shift ends, they just leave it and move. And now in your systems, you have that item attached to an order, but in reality, it's just sitting, in a warehouse. And you add that up over, let's say, 10,000 items in a warehouse. Suddenly, like, oh my gosh, this is a huge problem. So marrying the physical and the digital world is a very complex endeavor. I don't think anybody has truly solved it. And as AI was coming along, I'm like, hey, this is an interesting thing where, we have one of the largest industries, logistics and supply chain in the world, that is still mostly run on emails and phone calls and text messages. And partly because it's very fragmented. So there's just so many parties and there's only common ways for them to exchange information with each other is through these common mediums, emails and phone calls, which is very draining for operators, but also very wasteful for the whole system. And so, the idea was that I was both a builder and a buyer of logistics before, and I've seen these pains for ourselves. Like at Deliver, we were buying, tens of millions of dollars worth of trucking, for instance, every year. And it was very painful to buy and to get visibility into trucking. Right. And like, AI is a unique way where we can at least solve this problem by meeting people where they're at. So far, the attempts have been, hey, there's a problem. It's well recognized. Logistics is highly fragmented. It runs on emails, phone calls, and text. We're going to solve it. But the way we were going to solve it is we're going to build a new system. And because it's so fragmented, you just cannot have everybody join that new system. AI was a way where like, hey, we can meet you where you're at. It can do your emails. It can do your calls. It can do your texts. It can interact with your systems of record. It can start to take away all this busy work so you can focus on more creative problem solving versus chasing documents, chasing emails, tracking trucks, setting up appointments, things like that. And we think, oh, that then opens up windows to do a lot more. Like you have lots of interesting data about that business. You can now have AI on two sides, collaborate synchronously. You can optimize chains better. So it just made sense to say like this is a transformative moment in time and an industry that has mostly resisted tech to actually go transform it by building tech that meets them where they're at.
Got it. I'm curious, like, what keeps you coming back?
I mean, I think it's just the love of the problem. Sometimes you're in a video game and you keep playing it and it's just the love of the problem. Like, can I crack it? It's not like, I would say, the love of the solution. Like I like people who just like obsess about the problem. And then there's a possibility that the solution they start off with today is just no good tomorrow because tech has changed so much. But the problem remains. And this is a pretty gnarly problem. Like logistics is a very tough problem, but it's also a very consequential problem. You know, the coffee mug on your table, like 20 different companies had to collaborate for that coffee mug to get on your table, right?
Right.
From maybe Asia to, Canada. And lots of things can go wrong in that. But it's consequential because everything you touch, any store you go to, or you look around your home or your office, like anything you see, logistics and supply chain had to touch it for it to be where it is at today. So I would say it's just the love of the problem, love of building. It's that. And also I think at this time was a bit different where we were going through such a big technology transformation that I think the biggest in my lifetime. That I would regret not building with it.
How do you start with this one? I mean, and you're building AI or voice AI specifically into logistics, just to be clear.
No, we're building AI. So our product is called Augie, which is an AI teammate. Think of it as almost like a remote employee that you can have. It can do emails and phone calls and text, and it can interact with your systems. It can message just like a remote employee could, right? They could do all of that. And you can give Augie work through SOPs, just like you would give work through standard operating procedures to remote employees. So it's very no different. You just get Augie that works 24/7, parallelly like thousands of people, and they can really get work done for you, regardless of modality, regardless of the systems you use.
And specifically for logistics companies.
Specifically for logistics companies, yeah. So it understands the world of logistics really deeply. Logistics is also very large, right? It has warehousing, it has trucking, it has freight forwarding and distributors, shippers. And we're starting off with freight, which is trucking. Within that, there are brokerages, there are fleets, and there are shippers. So we're targeting that subsegment.
We had a company called Happy Robot that came on here. They was doing like voice AI for, I think, freight forwarding. You familiar with them?
Yeah. I think they're very much more focused on the voice side.
Yes.
I think our view of the word is that it's a very multimodal word. Like some problems are better solved through text. Funnily enough, some problems are better solved through Telegram. In this business, there's a lot of dispatchers in Eastern Europe who only use Telegram. Similarly, there's lots of people who support this industry in India. They only use WhatsApp. They run their entire business on WhatsApp, right? And sometimes some problems are better solved through email. Some are better solved through internal messaging. And so ours is like, hey, it's a multimodal word. And then also it's an end-to-end order-to-cash type of service where it's not just like we're tracking loads for you or we're taking bids for you. It can do all that. It can make calls. But how do we look at order-to-cash processes for your business? Because we believe if you do that, then you carry the context through and you don't have to like have 5 agents who just don't talk to each other. It's like imagining if you have like 50 very smart employees, but they never talk to each other, like how chaotic would that be? So what you do want is the AI that is helping you in one process. And after they're done, transfer that context to the next process and so on and so forth. So then they are in sync of what is happening for that shipment or for a business, for a contract, whatnot,
So walk me through one of the things that people want to know the most about is going to market, right? Like how do you get those customers? And in your case, I mean, you had so much experience and you know the space so well. Once you have this idea that AI can transform a lot of the pieces of the puzzle in this logistics world, like how did you decide to go to market with Augment?
In this case, I think what we did is we went out to get, I would say, a few design partners / customers, right? Because we didn't want to pretend to know the whole word. I mean, I think I know the word, but once you get to second, third, fourth layer, the only way to know is to live and breathe the operator, that business. We basically went to a few customers and said like, hey, if you become our design partner, We have ideas. We have a little bit of a product working. It's not there yet. AI is going to be important. If you follow our vision, this is how it could look like in a year's time, 2 years' time with you. What we would want from you is time of your people that we can sit down with and truly understand their word, like deeply understand, not from a CEO's perspective, not from a VP's perspective, but actually from the operator's perspective. So we want to be able to do that. In return, we will build software to your needs, AI to your needs, and you will be one of the early adopters.
Was there resistance from the end users, like because everyone's scared of losing their jobs to AI?
I would say there's a little resistance, but not a whole lot, because I think the right leaders and us, we set the expectation that I think there's sort of two pieces there, right, Pablo? Like one is, it is going to happen, right? If you resist it, the only thing you're hurting is now you would be less employable because you don't have AI. Like treat AI as a skill that makes you more employable. And you have a golden opportunity to be at a company that is adopting it early versus later, that builds your skill sets on how do you work with AI in a meaningful way that actually makes you very employable. If you don't do that and you flip on the other side and you resist it, well, that certainly hurts your chances of employability, right? But I'm not saying it's easy. The other piece is this industry is overwhelmed. I think it's not about like AI taking on too many jobs right away. I think right now it's like getting work done because it's also been in sort of a freight recession for 3 years. People are doing way more with less number of people. Everybody's just very overwhelmed with the amount of work on their plates. So any help on tedious, repetitive, mundane work that nobody likes to do is very welcome, right? Like nobody likes to chase documents. Hey, can you send me your delivery document? Oh, can you send me the invoice? Oh, your invoice is wrong. Oh, it's not signed right. It doesn't match the load number. Hey, you forgot this one. Like who loves that, right? Nobody in the company loves that. But you have to do it to get paid, to pay people. Oh, AI is perfect at that. Put Augie to work. It can get you all the documents. It can check the documents. It can check the invoices. It can get your billing cycle sped up so you get cash fast. You can pay cash fast.
Does it do like accounts receivable, like all that stuff as well?
Right now, it's chasing a lot of documents. It's not doing entries into the books or whatnot, but it is like, hey, a shipment got delivered. We need to collect documents. We collect invoices. We need to, sometimes there's accessorial charges. Sometimes there's lumpers. It can read the documents. It can see if the documents are the correct documents. If we need to collect additional documents, it is going back and forth on emails with companies all day long. And when it knows it has everything, it can forward or upload it to the system. So then, the financial systems can take on and start to invoice, for instance,
And just to get hyper specific, do you remember anything in this design partner phase? Like you're talking about, you understand the top, but how do you understand all the subtleties? Do you remember anything in particular that you learned through that then you implemented and maybe made a big change or whatever it was, but something important that you learned through that design phase of really being there and living?
Yeah. So I think what we did is, honestly, first 50, 60 days, we shadowed operators, in the business, like literally sit behind people's desk in a almost creepy way and just observe what they do. One thing in this industry is that, like trucks run 24/7 all the time, right? Like they don't stop. And so people, work 9 to 5. Sometimes they have offshore teams, but things can happen on the road. Trucks can break down, appointments can delay, labor shortages happen. So when they arrive at a warehouse, they might have to wait. And for all of those, you need to communicate to everybody else who's impacted. In order to account for the fact that the trucks run all the time and bad things can happen, but people work in their shifts 9 to 5, and then some offshore teams that take over, they create these email groups or email listservs. So customer X has a listserv and people are part of that, and the offshore team is part of that. So every email about that customer is going to everybody, right? And that's done because they will always want coverage, right? And this is a safer way to say everybody would get coverage because of that. Well, good idea. But the flip side is that for a single truck, there are at least 30 to 40 emails that are traded. Okay. So now you can imagine if somebody's running 20 trucks, is responsible for it. Their inbox has 600 to 800 emails a day. More than half of those emails are just for either informing, or they don't even need to read, or have been already actioned on by somebody else. But there's no other way to tease that out. Like you kind of have to read everything in your inbox to say, should I action on it? Did somebody else action on it? if they don't know if somebody else actioned on it, they also write in the email listserv, hey, did somebody take an action on it? That's another set of emails. So just the amount of emails that were going around in this industry is still very, very high. And the noise to signal ratio is also very high. Like it's just too much noise and less signal, right? So we're building and thinking through a lot of that stuff and saying, okay, how can Augie help with that? Like the core problem is that somebody needs to be able to attend to a truck at any point of time because things can go wrong. And the core problem is that people work 9 to 5. But the current solution, it may not be the right solution. There could be better solutions, you know? So this is one area. Like it's very obvious insight, but I don't know if unless you sit over 50 sessions and you see people's inboxes and really go into those inboxes and read every email, you like get conviction behind it. One of my favorite parts is when I go to a company, even today when we go sell or like talk to the economic buyer, the CEOs or whatnot, we ask for like a couple of hours with their operators. And then we learn like, you know, sometimes there's a disconnect between what the operators are doing and what the CEOs think they're doing. And if you build software for what the CEOs say they're doing, it won't get adopted. It just won't get adopted. You know, you might get a contract, but you won't get adopted. So next year, well, you won't get the renewal. I find it extremely important that even when you have a good welcome from the leadership, to spend time with the people who are actually going to use your product, you know, and they obsess about them.
Have you launched publicly now? Like you just raised like an $85 million Series A last month. So I assume things are moving pretty fast.
Yeah, we've launched. We are now live with over 35 billion of freight under management, companies collectively combined. Augie is doing amazing things in the wild. There's so much to build. Like we are still very early innings of this, like literally, you know, maybe like day 1 or day 0 is what I call. But yeah, it's receiving good positive feedback.
How fast did you hit like $1 million ARR?
Pretty fast.
Like a few months.
Yeah. Very, very exciting time. Like it's you know, you're delivering meaningful value, meaningful ROI, you know. So customers are more than happy to, you know, adopt and pay you for it.
Yes, I mean, that's one thing that's changed so much since before and after kind of this Gen AI is before it was like the hard thing was finding crazy value to deliver. Now there's so much value to deliver. The crazy thing is staying ahead of everybody else that's kind of trying to deliver, you know, similar value.
It's very competitive too. The space is extremely competitive. I think for the buyer, it's a noisy market because it's very hard for them to tell the difference between like a demo. Because it's very easy to create a demo today. You can literally go on Lovable and create a demo in a day, right? Or 2 days, and it looks pretty good. But then, you know, a production-ready product still takes a lot of time and a lot of iterations, and it's very hard for a buyer to tell the difference. So it's an interesting time, unlike anything I've seen so far, you know.
Let's stop it there, and I'll ask the 3 questions we always end on. The first one, choose whichever company you want to answer this for, but when did you feel personally like you'd found true product market fit?
For Augment, I think when we had, I would say, Augie deliver an end-to-end workflow for maybe like 10 or 15 users, and the user's sort of reaction was quite positive. Like these are end operators, their reaction was quite positive. I mean, we had a lot of signups before, or like people wanting to work with us, but I think the conviction started to build when Augie was doing work, you know, real work, and people were appreciative of the work.
Deliver ended up being a massive success. Was there a time where you actually thought maybe it wouldn't work out?
Man, entrepreneurial journeys are like that all the time. Like there are days where like, oh my gosh, like, you know, will we survive tomorrow or will we survive next week or next quarter? And, you know, entrepreneurial journeys are all about these peaks of optimism and you know, valleys of despair. So I don't see there's any, like, all of my friends go through the same. So I'm sure there are people and entrepreneurs who have it just going up, but I am not one of them. I think big part of these journeys are just things are never as good as they seem and never as bad as they seem. And just keeping that mind that the only thing matters is customer delight. And that's in your control. And there are things that are not in your control. And you obsess about it and you go deliver for it. And that just cuts the noise out too. You know, I mean, a lot part of entrepreneurial journey in my view is also like, it's a mental journey. You know, there's so many ups and downs and there's just like a lot going on. And I actually don't think people talk about it as much that they should. You know, we try to glamorize the big exits or like really celebrity entrepreneurs and people who've done amazing things, which is great. But how do you execute through these very high highs and low lows and and maintain a mental sanity all the way through. And I find for me personally, where I get that is just focus on the customer, focus on the customer delight, focus on the product that is delivering. That's in your control. Almost anything else is not in your control, and so don't obsess about it.
It's hard, especially I think like having gone through when I was young, like especially when you're young and you get like, for example, some crazy fundraise or some big validation, whatever it is. Maybe it is a customer, but it's just one customer and you just kind of start to over-index on how great it's going to be when you're the next Mark Zuckerberg. You know what I mean? And then tomorrow some huge failure happens and it's tough to balance that unless, like you said, you have some grounding focal point that keeps you level-headed.
Yeah, and you kind of have to have a few. My daughter's sort of diving coach. She's actually a 2-time Olympian. Speak to her and her friends about, if you think our journeys are tough, like these Olympians' journeys are maybe 10x tougher, right? They have to go perform. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. I mean, sports are so competitive. Just to be at an Olympian is like top 0.1% or 0.001%. But her thing was very cool. Like I learned a lot. It's like, hey, you're like, if you have like a little boat in a big ocean wave and you only have one floaty and you go up and down. But if you got 3 or 4 things you can hang yourself, whether it's faith, whether it's your family, whether it's your relationship, whether it's a sport, whether it's a hobby, then one is up, the other is down. It balances you out. Like that was her method. And, like taught me a lot, right? Like that's very important for us to have too.
Well, then let me ask just the last question. What would be some of your top piece of advice for an early stage founder trying to find product market fit?
Just obsess about the end user and get in their shoes, not the economic buyer. The economic buyer will follow when the end user loves you, when the operator loves you. But just anytime you can spend with the end operator using your product, using their existing status quo, learn the nuances, the little things, and just be obsessed about that problem. And I think if you're obsessed about it and you build for it, I think good things happen. Obsess about that, not about revenues, because if you obsess about that, revenue follows. But if you obsess about revenues, then I think bad things can happen. So just keep that the main thing is probably, I would suggest people to do.
Love it. Harish, thanks so much for jumping on the show, man. It's been awesome having you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Wow, what an episode. You're probably in awe. You're in absolute shock. You're like, that helped me so much. So guess what? Now it's your turn to help someone else. Share the episode in the WhatsApp group you have with founders. Share it on that Slack channel. Send it to your founder friends and help them out. Trust me, they will love you for it.